If I stop uploading here, you can find me via my website in the description below. Chapter 1. 1493, all-encompassing flag and infernal lightning beast. Liu Zhu was quite pleased with Han Li's current condition. This eyeball of a Chai Li beast was something I obtained many years ago. Unfortunately, this treasure contradicts with the cultivation arts I'm using, so I couldn't fuse it into my body, and I could only refine it into a captivation treasure. Brother Liu Zhu, this brat's cultivation base isn't very high, but he possesses a lot of strange abilities. Are you sure he's under your control, fellow Taoist Mu, and I have already given up on the treasure in the devilish tomb? We don't want anything to go wrong, the white-haired beauty asked as she looked at Han Li with a grim expression. Rest assured, fellow Taoist Lan Si Li beasts are true spirit beings that can compare to the likes of true dragons. A captivation treasure refined using its law-destruction eye is extraordinarily powerful, and even beings like you and I would be susceptible to its effects, let alone a deity transformation cultivator. If you don't believe in me, I can use the treasure on you, so you can experience its power. We trust you, fellow Taoist Liu Zhu. It's just that I still think it's a real pity that we've had to give up on the treasure in the devilish tomb. In order to secure the treasure, their big sister Lan and I have made many preparations in advance. But that'll all go to waste now. Mu Qing sighed with a wry smile. The so-called devilish tomb is merely the burial site for a few powerful devils that unintentionally infiltrated the infernal river, only to be slain by the elders of the Mayfly race at the time. Those devils did indeed possess incredible abilities. As for the treasures you're referring to, those should be their remains, some special parts of which may have attained spiritual nature, after being nurtured for so many years by the yin qi in this place. However, those treasures can't compare to the divine elixir. Don't forget that if you consume the elixir, then apply it all over your bodies, the amount of world's origin qi that you control will increase by several-fold. In that case, it really wouldn't be a pipe dream for us to further our cultivation paths. If we're lucky, we could even have a shot at ascending to the true immortal realm, Liu Zhu said with a rare hint of excitement in his voice. I understand all that, brother Liu Zhu, but one of the treasures in the devilish tomb is extremely important to me. Otherwise, why would I have spent so much time and effort recruiting Han Brat to my side? Mu Qing was still feeling a little forlorn. Regardless of how important those treasures are to you, we have to employ some special methods if we want to secure the divine elixir before the Mayfly race reinforcements get here. Only through doing this will we be able to break the restriction as soon as possible and lure the infernal lightning beast away. Alternatively, do you want to give up on the divine elixir for the treasures in the devilish tomb instead? Liu Zhu asked in a cold voice. There's no way I'd give up on the divine elixir. If I had to make a sacrifice, then it'll have to be the treasures of the devilish tomb. Mu Qing made up her mind in the end. Good. Besides, getting Han Brat to lure the infernal lightning beast away isn't imposing on him a sure death sentence. If he survives, you'll still have a chance to go and secure the treasures of the devilish tomb. One of the crimson-robed figures chuckled. You and I are both aware of just how fearsome infernal lightning beasts are. He really will be extremely fortunate if he could survive after luring away that beast. By the way, didn't we only discuss restricting Han Brat earlier? Why have you also restricted the two girls who accompanied fellow Taoist Lans here? Mu Qing harumphed coldly before turning to the expressionless Yuan Yao and Yan Li. Don't be alarmed, Sister Mu. I transmitted my voice to Di Jue asking him to control these two. That Han Brat won't be able to protect the two girls any longer after luring the infernal lightning beast away, so it might be rather dangerous to have them running around on their own. Furthermore, the pure yin qi in the bodies of those two girls can assist me in refining the divine elixir, the white-haired beauty explained in a nonchalant manner. Mu Qing fell silent upon hearing this. Seeing as all three of them have been restricted, let's act according to the plan. We'll break this restriction together, then get Han Brat to unleash his divine Devilbane lightning in order to lure that infernal lightning beast away from the divine pond. After that, we'll be able to secure the divine elixir with ease, Liu Zhu said. Infernal lightning beasts are extremely fearsome creatures. Will divine Devilbane lightning really be enough to lure it away? What if that fails, and we only end up aggravating the beast instead? The white-haired beauty asked in a cautious manner. Infernal lightning beasts love to devour lightning, and divine Devilbane lightning is one of the 5 divine lightnings of the spirit realm. How could it possibly be willing to ignore such alluring bait? Liu Zhu was clearly quite confident in his plan. I see. I'm feeling a lot more confident and assured now. The white-haired beauty nodded in response. Di Xu then turned to the two crimson-robed figures and said, "Fellow Taoist Di Xue, the final wall that we face will have to be broken down by you and you, Purple Blood Puppet. We refined this Purple Blood Puppet for none other than this purpose." One of the crimson-robed figures chuckled. Liu Zhu merely nodded in response. After that, the demon monarch took close to an hour to discuss their strategy in detail, and after ascertaining that every single fine detail had been addressed, they flew toward the grey mountain ranges along with Jin Ling and the remaining high-grade demon beasts. Han Li, Yuan Yao, and Yan Li followed along like mindless puppets. A distance of close to 100 kilometers was naturally covered in virtually the blink of an eye for demon monarchs like them. After entering the mountain ranges, the demon monarchs' expressions all became quite grave as they continuously surveyed their surroundings in an extremely cautious manner. However, this stretch of the journey was remarkably smooth. They didn't encounter so much as a single ghostly being, and 2 hours later they had passed through a small portion of the mountain ranges. Thus, they arrived in a massive basin. This basin was several tens of kilometers wide, and it was surrounded by undulating grey mountains. The basin at the center of these mountains was enshrouded under a barrier of black light. This light barrier was extremely dark, making it impossible for anyone to glean the situation beyond it. Liu Zhu and the others paused in mid-air as they began to carefully appraise this light barrier. It's a good thing that we destroyed most of the ghostly beings here last time we were here. Otherwise, I don't think that leg of our journey would have been so smooth, Mu Qing murmured. But we were taken by surprise by the infernal lightning beast in the restriction, and fellow Taoist Zhu, unfortunately, fell here as a result. That mature infernal lightning beast truly was very fearsome. One of the crimson-robed figures sighed. "Let's get started. We'll destroy a small section of this profound light barrier to lure out the infernal lightning beast, and after that, we'll have to rely on you to conceal us, fellow Taoist Mu Qing," Liu Zhu said in a grave voice. "As long as I don't have to attack and can focus wholeheartedly on maintaining the concealment formation, there's no way that the infernal lightning beast will be able to discover our presence. However, this formation is very taxing on my magic power and spiritual sense, so I won't be able to keep it going for long. We have to get that Han brat to lure the beast away as quickly as possible and as far away from this place as he can," Mu Qing replied with a solemn expression. "I'm aware of this. I'll be giving Han brat a flying treasure from my collection to enhance his speed. Fellow Taoist, Dai Shu, plaster a few of your talismans on him. Fellow Taoist Lan, give him your all-encompassing flag as well," Liu Zhu said in a confident manner. A hint of reluctance appeared on the white-haired beauty's face upon hearing this. "Are we really giving the all-encompassing flag to him? It's not a divine spirit treasure, but in terms of defensive properties, it's superior even to some divine spirit treasures. If some kind of mishap occurs, you should be aware of this by now. The safest situation for us will be in which Hanbrat manages to stall the infernal lightning beast for as long as possible. You can just recover the flag after all is said and done. You're the only one among us with a treasure of this nature, which can offer superb protective properties without the need for much magic power expenditure and complex mantras," Liu Zhu said with furrowed brows. "All right, looks like I have no choice then." After a long, lengthy hesitation, the white-haired beauty finally rubbed her hands together in a dejected manner, following which a ball of white light erupted and a small silver flag emerged. The flag was shimmering with light and its faces were riddled with runes. Even at first glance, one could easily tell that this was an extraordinary treasure. The white-haired beauty wasted no further time with words as she pointed a slim finger at the flag. The flag then immediately flew toward Han Li as a streak of silver light. The eyeball situated on Han Li glabella flashed at Liu Zhu's behest, and he swept his sleeve through the air in a wooden manner, sending forth a burst of grey light that swept the silver flag up into his sleeve. After that, he stood motionlessly on the spot once again, and his expression remained completely unchanged throughout this entire process, as if he really did possess no sentient will. Immediately thereafter, crimson light flashed behind him, and one of the crimson-robed figures abruptly appeared before raising a hand. A few muffled thumps rang out as the crimson-robed figure plastered a dozen or so talismans onto his body in rapid succession. Crimson light instantly radiated from Han Li's body, and his aura became significantly more powerful. Almost at the exact same moment, Mu Qing slowly rose up into the air before descending upon an obscure location nearby. The golden flower disappeared in a flash, and her 2 feet landed on the ground below. All of a sudden, the shoes on her feet spontaneously combusted, revealing a pair of fair and delicate feet amid a ball of white flames. She then swept her sleeves gracefully through the air, and countless specks of light flew forth from within, then disappeared into the nearby space. Immediately thereafter, a black light formation appeared before disappearing without a trace after a few sporadic flashes. An incredible turn of events unfolded thereafter. Mukin began to chant something in a delightful voice, and her feet suddenly turned into an azure color, morphing into thick tree roots before this transformation quickly worked its way up her legs. In virtually the blink of an eye, Mu Qing had transformed into a tree trunk from the waist down, and the tree roots that were once her feet had embedded themselves over 100 feet deep into the ground. Countless trees and wild flowers suddenly sprouted from the barren ground around them. Those flowers instantly blossomed, creating a patch of paradise amid this bleak land. The black light formation appeared on the ground again, and every single flower tree and blade of grass was perfectly encompassed within the light formation, without any plan overstepping those boundaries. Green spiritual light flashed, and Mu Qing disappeared along with the plants that had sprouted around her. Chapter 1, 1494 Bait. Liu Zhu immediately swept his spiritual sense toward Mu Qing's location upon seeing this, and his eyes immediately lit up in response to what he discovered. Good, your concealment formation really is quite extraordinary, fellow Taoist Mu. As long as the infernal lightning beast focuses its search on this specific area, there's no way that it'll be able to find us. Liu Zhu then waved a hand and flew toward the green light barrier, followed closely by the 2 crimson-robed figures, the purple blood puppet and the white-haired beauty. Green light flashed, and all of them disappeared into thin air, leaving Han Li standing alone on the spot. Moments later, the black bead on his glabella flashed, and he slowly flew into the air above the black light barrier. After that, he remained hovering completely motionlessly in mid-air, completely out in the open. The demon monarchs concealed under the restriction each produced a crimson saber. The short sabers were no more than 3 feet in length, and their design was quite peculiar. Following an instruction from Liu Zhu, the demon monarchs quickly injected their demonic power into their crimson sabers. Brilliant crimson light flashed and tremored like a series of blood vipers writhing in the air. The crimson sabers began to emit a low ringing sound, and the demon monarchs were ready for the next step. Everyone failed to notice that the puppet-like Han Li suddenly moved his hand surreptitiously within his sleeves. In one hand, a silver talisman appeared amid a flash of silver light, while 7 or 8 azure beads had rolled soundlessly into his other hand. Han Li hadn't actually lost control over his consciousness, and he'd actually retained his sentient will. However, at this moment, he was rapidly contemplating his situation in a conflicted manner. Back when Mu Qing and the others had immobilized him, thereby forcing him to accept the black thread that flew into his body, he'd thought that he really was in deep trouble. However, much to his surprise and elation, the black thread only caused his consciousness to fade for a split second before. It was completely engulfed by the Law Destruction Eye hidden in his glabella. Thus his consciousness returned, and Han Li himself had initially also been rather perplexed about this. Only after hearing from Liu Zhu that this black bead was the Law Destruction Eye of a Qi beast did he realize what had happened. He already possessed a Law Destruction Eye of his own, so it naturally wasn't strange that his Law Destruction Eye was capable of nullifying and absorbing an ability unleashed by a treasure of the same nature. There was nothing wrong with Liu Zhu's plan nor his execution, but never would he have thought that Han Li would possess a Law Destruction Eye of his own. After a brief period of contemplation, Han Li decided to go along with what they were doing, pretending to be under their control while searching for an opportunity to free himself. However, he was stunned to hear that they were going to use him as bait to lure away some infernal lightning beast. It was the first time that Han Li had heard such a name, but the demon monarchs were clearly all extremely fearful of this beast, and that was more than sufficient indication of how fearsome that thing had to be. He naturally didn't want to act as bait to draw away such a dangerous creature. But if he were to do anything that went against Liu Zu's will, they'd immediately realize that he wasn't actually under their control. Seeing as they had a captivation treasure like the eye of the sea Lai beast, they almost definitely had other treasures and secret techniques that they could use to control Han Li's spiritual sense, and he may not be so lucky next time, even though he could use his provenance true devil arts to lock his spiritual sense away deep into his soul. The demon monarchs could destroy his soul out of sheer frustration, and that would be an even worse outcome for him. Han Lai remained completely expressionless, but his mind was racing rapidly. At the same time, he was experiencing the immense spiritual power surging within his body. He didn't know what kind of talismans Di Shui had plastered to his body, but he suddenly felt his blood heat up, and the spiritual power within his body instantly increased significantly. That was quite astonishing to Han Li, even though these secret techniques that temporarily enhanced one's cultivation base often resulted in negative after effects. In this dire situation, it wasn't a bad thing to receive a power boost. At the very least, the benefits most likely outweighed the potential drawbacks. On top of that, the all-encompassing flag that had been given to him was most likely also quite an extraordinary treasure, as evidenced by the white-haired beauty to part with it. He didn't know if this treasure couldn't be refined, or if the white-haired beauty had intentionally refrained from refining it, but it had no residual spiritual sense marks residing within it. White light flashed, and the small flag appeared in Han Li's palm. He then swept his spiritual sense toward it to find that it was extremely easy to use, and he would most likely be able to easily unleash its powers. Seeing as Liu Zu had asked the white-haired beauty to give him this treasure, it was quite clear that it would be able to somewhat assist him in withstanding the infernal lightning beast's attacks. Otherwise, there would have been no need to even bother with something like this. With this treasure combined with the trump cards that he was carrying, it wouldn't be impossible for Han Li to escape from this infernal lightning beast. The infernal lightning beast was most likely not going to be an extremely fast being, thereby allowing him to open up some distance between it and himself. Otherwise, there would be no point in the demon monarchs using Han Li as bait. If he were merely going to be chased down and killed in seconds, if he were to go against Liu Zu's will and have his cover blown even though there was a chance he'd able to escape, those tracking marks were a constant pain his backside. As such, it was better to take a risk and continue pretending to be under their control. As long as he could escape from the infernal lightning beast and separate himself from the demon monarchs, he'd be able to temporarily repress the tracking marks, thereby making it impossible for them to ascertain his location. After that, he could find an opportunity to rescue Yuan Yao and Yan Li. They were the keys to his freedom. Even though Han Li's face remained completely expressionless, he had finally made up his mind. Right at this moment, Liu Zu and the others finally sprang into action. Following a low cry, the crimson sabers were all thrust forward in unison, blasting forth several thick pillars of crimson light that struck the black light barrier with ferocious might. It was quite clear that these crimson sabers had been prepared by the demon monarchs solely for the purpose of breaking this restriction. As soon as the crimson pillars of light struck the light barrier, it created imagery much like stones being hurled into still water. The entire light barrier suddenly began to ripple and emit a faint ringing sound. All of a sudden, a low, beastly growl erupted from within the light barrier, followed by a string of explosive thunderclap that was drawing closer and closer. Liu Zu's expression darkened, and he quickly withdrew his crimson saber as he yelled, "That thing's coming, stop!" The other demon monarchs also hurriedly withdrew their attacks. Almost at the exact same moment, Mu Qing's crimson saber disappeared in a flash, following which she made a hand seal. Green light flashed from her tree-like lower body, and she activated the formation underfoot. An enormous burst of invisible power erupted, completely concealing their auras. From a distance, it appeared that there was nothing there. At this moment, black light flashed from Han Li's glabella, and he received another instruction from Liu Zu through the Law Destruction Eye. Han Li rubbed his hands together in a wooden manner, and a loud thunderclap erupted as a layer of golden lightning surfaced around his body. He then rustled a sleeve to send the small silver flag flying through the air, without requiring any hand seals or incantations. The flag immediately transformed into black and white spiritual qi that surrounded Han Li, forming a series of yin-yang projections of different sizes. At the same time, Han Li's thunderstorm wings appeared on his back, and he spread them open, preparing to fly away at any moment. All of a sudden, silver light flashed from the surface of the black light barrier, and the barrier was suddenly torn apart by a bolt of silver lightning that was as thick as a water tank. The arc of silver lightning then circled around in the air, and there seemed to be something lurking within it. Before Han Li had a chance to get a good look at it, Liu Zu's urgent instruction was transmitted directly into his spiritual sense, asking him to flee with all his might. Han Li immediately spread open his wings upon receiving this instruction, and he disappeared amid a gentle breeze. Only then did the arc of silver lightning recede to reveal a black demon beast that was around the size of a horse. The beast's outward appearance was quite similar to that of a wolf, but its back was covered in scales, and it had a single silver horn growing on its head. Its eyes were golden in color, and there were 4 thick arcs of silver lightning revolving around its body. This was none other than the infernal lightning beast that Liu Zu and the others had been so fearful of. It didn't appear to be all that vicious, but as soon as it appeared, its eyes were immediately drawn to Han Li, who had already fled to several thousand feet away. In fact, it had been drawn to Han Li's divine Devilbane lightning. A hint of scorching yearning appeared in the infernal lightning beast's eyes as soon as it caught sight of the golden arcs of lightning around Han Li's body, and after assessing its surroundings to ensure that nothing was amiss, it let loose a low snarl, then crouched down before springing forth as an arc of silver lightning. The beast had unleashed some kind of secret technique to blast arcs of lightning out of its limbs to drastically enhance its speed, and after just a few flashes, it was close to reaching Han Li. Han Li didn't turn around to look behind himself, but he could sense the ferocious beast approaching him from behind. His heart constricted as he cussed internally. This beast was most likely only lacking in speed in the eyes of the demon monarchs. For Han Li, its speed was definitely quite staggering. As such, he didn't dare to hold back any longer. His snowy white wings suddenly began to emit 5-colored spiritual light, and after a single flap, Han Li transformed into a translucent 5-colored thread that disappeared into space. When he reappeared out of thin air, he'd covered an extremely long distance, and he wasn't much slower than the infernal lightning beast behind him. Thus the two of them sped away into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. A short while later, green light flashed and the demon monarchs reappeared. "We have to make haste. Han Brat won't buy too much time for us, so let's take care of this restriction as quickly as possible." The demon monarchs brandished their crimson sabers again as they resumed their assault against the light barrier. On this occasion, the pillars of crimson light that shot forth instantly transformed into a series of crimson worms, and this wave of attacks was clearly far more powerful than the previous ones. At the same time, a massive insect projection appeared above Liu Zu's head. The projection opened its mouth before blasting forth a pillar of black light, and the purple blood puppet also swelled to several times its original size at the crimson-robed figure's behest. Mu-Ching instantly reverted back to her human form again, before also swinging her crimson saber through the air, unleashing several streaks of crimson light that combined to form a massive saber projection, which hurtled directly toward the light barrier. Chapter 1. 1495 5-Dragon Chopper. The pillars of crimson light created violent ripples over the surface of the black light barrier, causing it to flash erratically. Within moments, the purple blood puppet had already swelled to around 10,000 feet tall, and it was like a mighty deity as it summoned its massive purple axe, then swung it down toward the black light barrier with ferocious might. A series of rumbling booms akin to thunderclaps erupted as countless axe projections struck the same spot on the light barrier. As for the white-haired woman, she was only injecting her power into her crimson saber with all her might, without unleashing any additional abilities. The restriction barrier was extremely powerful, yet it was still unable to withstand the combined attacks from so many body integration stage beings. As such, a hole with a diameter of over 100 feet was blasted into its surface, and even though the hole immediately began to seal itself, there was more than enough time for the demon monarchs pass through. "I'll stabilize this opening with a secret technique." Liu Zu was ecstatic, and he immediately unleashed 8 balls of blue light that expanded drastically as they flew through the air. These were 8 blue pillar treasures, and all of them disappeared into the opening at once. An incredible scene ensued. Blue light flashed and the opening transformed into a square passageway that was paved with blue crystalline stones, as if they'd been embedded into the light barrier. "I'll be going on ahead, everyone." Liu Zhu chortled before entering through the opening as a streak of black light. The two crimson-robed figures glanced at one another before one of them leapt down onto the ground while the other stomped a foot onto the purple blood puppet's shoulder. The puppet rapidly shrank down to only several tens of feet in size, then entered the black light barrier with the other crimson-robed figure. For some reason, the two decided to leave one of them behind outside the light barrier. The white-haired beauty faltered slightly upon seeing this. Meanwhile, Mu Qing swept her sleeves through the air, and countless specks of light flew toward her from all directions before disappearing into her sleeves. She had cleaned up everything that had been used to set up that concealment restriction. "Sister Lan, are you going to go in with your two disciples? Even though the infernal lightning beast has been lured out, who knows what other dangers could lurk in there? With their lowly cultivation bases, there's a good chance that they could perish in there. Jin Ling, you can stay out here." Mu Qing issued a few cautionary words to the white-haired beauty, then delivered an instruction to the golden ape before also flying into the passageway with her golden flower beneath her feet. Jin Ling bowed in response and remained on the spot as it was told. However, the white-haired beauty's brows furrowed as she cast her gaze toward the puppet-like Yuan Yao and Yan Li. A cold smile then appeared on her face as she murmured to herself, "I'd be even more worried if I were to leave them outside. You two come with me." She made a hand seal to release a gust of grey yin winds which swept up the two women before she entered the passageway. Thus, there were only a few beings left behind outside the light barrier. "Let's guard this entrance here for now. If everything goes smoothly, they should be able to return with the divine elixir soon." The crimson-robed figure who had stayed behind suddenly said to Jin Ling, "I certainly hope that to be the case well. I'll be following your orders here, senior." Jin Ling was acting in a very respectful manner in the presence of the crimson-robed figure. "Heh heh, you must be wondering if I'm the true Di Shui or merely an avatar." The crimson-robed figure chuckled. "Surely you jest, senior. My mistress has told me in the past that you're capable of splitting up your soul, so both bodies could be said to be your true body, and both could be said to be avatars as well. So there's no difference between the two," Jin Ling replied calmly. The crimson-robed figure faltered slightly upon hearing this before chuckling to himself, "Fairy Mo sure knows about me." At this point, there were still 3 high-grade demon beasts remaining outside the light barrier aside from Jin Ling and Di Shui. All 3 of those demon beasts had adopted their human forms and were standing not far away from the 2 of them. The crimson-robed figure cast his gaze toward these 3 demon beasts, and he was just about to say something when his pupils suddenly contracted. His hand shot forth like lightning before making a grabbing motion toward a nearby spot in the air without any premonition. A massive crimson hand that reeked of blood and gore appeared in the air above that patch of space, then swelled to around an acre in size before crashing downward with ferocious might. A streak of silver light flashed through the air, and the massive crimson hand was sliced into 2 amid a resounding boom. A humanoid figure then swayed nearby, and a crimson-armored puppet appeared amid a flash of silver light, appraising the crimson-robed figure and the others in an expressionless manner. "Is that a puppet from the Mayfly race?" Jin Ling was rather surprised to see such a being appear here. "Be careful, this is not an ordinary crimson-armored puppet. A powerful being from the Mayfly race has imbued some of their spiritual sense into this puppet," the crimson-robed figure cautioned in a grave voice. That attack that he had just unleashed wasn't a particularly powerful one, but he was still very surprised to see it being dismantled with such ease. He narrowed his eyes and focused his gaze on that streak of indistinct silver light. The silver light was extremely blurry, and even he couldn't see what was lurking within it. That was slightly alarming to him, and he didn't dare to look away from that silver light even for a single instant. Jin Ling's heart also jolted with shock upon hearing the crimson-robed figure's words of caution and seeing the grave expressions on his face. As such, it also focused its gaze on the crimson-armored puppet. Using its spirit eye ability, it was able to do what the crimson-robed figure couldn't, and identified the object within the silver light. It was a faint silver worm that was circling around in mid-air, creating quite a mysterious spectacle. Jin Ling's brows furrowed upon seeing this. It was unable to identify what kind of weapon this was, but it had to be something like a sword or a saber for it to be, able to slice through the crimson-robed figure's attack so easily. You must be one of the mayfly race puppets that got away right seeing as you were able to escape. Why didn't you hide somewhere until we were gone? Are you seeking an early death by coming out to face us here? In that case, I wouldn't mind granting your wish and sending you on your way. The crimson-robed figure chuckled coldly. If we weren't battling you in our puppet bodies, do you really think you'd be able to defeat us in any case? None of that matters anymore. Aside from your group here, everyone else seems to have entered our divine pond. Looks like I'll be able to trap all of you here and kill you in one fell swoop. The crimson-armored puppet said in a cold voice, "You think you can kill all of us on your own?" The crimson-robed figure chuckled at the absurdity of that notion. "That's right with this five-dragon chopper. None of you will able to escape from this place alive." The crimson-armored puppet suddenly raised a hand as it spoke. All of a sudden, a loud dragon roar erupted as a silver chopper that was bright and smooth as a mirror came flying down from above before landing in the puppet's grasp. "Five-dragon chopper, I seem to recall this treasure from somewhere." The crimson-robed figure stared at the chopper with furrowed brows. "Is that so? None of that matters, as you'll all be perishing to this treasure soon anyway." The crimson-armored puppet seemed to be unwilling to waste any more time with words as it raised its saber-wielding hand, then slashed it through the air. Jinling and the crimson-robed figure reflexively shot forth through the air to take evasive measures upon seeing this. At this moment, 3 chopper projections suddenly appeared in mid-air, but they were targeting the distance beyond the golden ape and the crimson-robed figure. The 3 high-grade demon beasts in that direction had also adopted defensive measures, but the projections were simply too fast for them to evade, and too powerful for them to withstand as their bodies were sliced in half before any of them could even utter a single sound. After that, the 3 chopper projections abruptly disappeared in a flash. Jinling and the crimson-robed figure were both stunned to see this, and Jinling attempted to fly into the distance while the crimson-robed figure swept his sleeves through the air to summon clouds of crimson mist. However, the crimson-armored puppet merely stood on the spot with a derisive sneer on its face while slashing its chopper through the air several more times. 4 chopper projections came crashing down toward its 2 opponents in unison. The projections didn't appear to be traveling very quickly, but they reached the 2 of them in the blink of an eye. Jinling's expression changed drastically upon seeing this as he shrugged his shoulders, following which the 2 short swords he was carrying on his back flew toward the 2 chopper projections as rapid streaks of light. The 2 short swords were then instantly sliced in half before plummeting from the sky as 4 segments. The 2 projections then continued onward, seemingly having remained completely unobstructed by the 2 short swords they'd cut down. Jinling's heart jolted with alarm as its body blurred on the spot. A chopper projection flashed past, and the golden ape's body was immediately sliced in half, but its remains quickly disappeared, revealing that body to be a mere afterimage. Golden light then flashed over 100 feet away, and Jinling re-emerged from thin air. However, as soon as it revealed itself, the other chopper projection was already hurtling toward it, and the timing was so unerringly accurate that Jinling had no chance to evade. Thus, its head was sliced off, and its headless body swayed before plummeting from the sky. Meanwhile, the crimson-armored puppet made a grabbing motion toward the silver chopper in its other hand, and a ball of green flames emerged, within which was trapped a miniature golden monkey with a horrified look on its face. The crimson-armored puppet chuckled coldly as silver light flashed from the surface of the chopper, and the miniature monkey let loose a cry of anguish before disintegrating into nothingness within the green flames. Only then did the crimson-armored puppet turn its gaze toward the other direction. There, the crimson-robed figure had released a vast expanse of blood, mist that encompassed roughly an acre of area around his body. The 2 chopper projections were whizzing through the air like a pair of lethal weapons, but the crimson-robed figure had been able to evade them so far, albeit with difficulty. Green light flashed within the puppet's eyes, and it harumphed coldly before suddenly tossing its chopper up into the air. Brilliant silver light instantly erupted from the chopper as countless chopper projection shot forth through the air, and on this occasion even the crimson-robed figure was greatly alarmed. He immediately hurtled toward the nearby blue passageway, having clearly realized that this saber-wielding opponent was not someone that he could oppose. However, unbeknownst to the crimson-robed figure, the 5-dragon chopper was only truly beginning to bare its fangs now. The crimson armored puppet made a hand seal, and all of the chopper projections in the air suddenly disappeared. A loud thunderclap then erupted from the silver chopper itself, before it transformed into 5 worms of different colors. All of them circled around in the air before transforming again into 5 massive translucent blades, then disappearing on the spot in unison. In the next instant, the 5 massive blades appeared directly over the opening of the blue passageway before descending downward, heading directly toward the cloud of blood mist that had only just made it to the entrance as well.